Hill from itflea.com, and the goal of this lesson is to show you how you can create saved queries to make redundant tasks much easier. For example, you can create a saved query that will list all of the users who have not logged in within the last 30 days. You can also do this with PowerShell, but we're going to be using saved queries to complete this task. Now, the first thing you need to do is be logged into your domain controller and have Active Directory open. If you're not at that point, go ahead and pause this lecture and come back and resume the lecture once you have Active Directory open. Now we will start by creating a new query that will list users who have not logged in within the last 30 days. To do this, you will need to right-click on the saved queries and you'll need to choose New and then select Query. The new query window will appear, and now we just need to type in a name and a description. This is just purely informational to help you identify what the query does. I'm going to type in 30 days since last logon. And under the description, this is optional. I'm just going to write list of users who have not logged in within the last 30 days. Okay? Now, we can change the query root if we'd like by hitting the browse. If you had another domain you would like to check, you could also choose that domain at this point, or we could select a particular OU if we would like. But we're just going to leave it at the itflea root. So we're going to check include subcontainers. If we don't check that, it won't check inside of the OUs like, let me show you. If we do not check this checkbox, then it won't find any users that are stored inside of this OU right here. Okay, and that will be a problem. So you always want to go with include subcontainers, unless you have a specific need of only checking one particular OU. Now we need to click Define Query. Under the Find dropdown, you can see that we have users, contacts and groups, computers, printers, shared folders, organizational units, custom search, and common queries. Now the first 5 options work just like any other regular Active Directory search. If we type in, for example, computers, we can type in the computer name, the role of the computer, just like you can when you're searching for a regular user or computer within Active Directory. The custom search allows you to create searches based on an object's properties. For example, you could only show users from a certain office location by choosing the field and selecting user, and then going down to office location. So if we scroll down here, see if I can find it. Here we go. Office location. We could type in, for example, Virginia or California or Florida or whatever we wanted to type in as far as the location. We could say United States. Whatever you have, the office locations, it'd probably be more specific like that. It'd probably be under the city. But we could find under the user, we could go with the employee ID or division or department. So we could list all the users that are in a certain department or anything else that we would like to choose in this field, okay? We could also go under computers and list computers that have a certain operating system or a certain description or a certain display name. We can see here that under the custom search, there's tons and tons of things we can find. We can find printers, trusted domains, users, shared folders, etc. You can also select the Advanced tab and enter a specific LDAP query. In order to be able to create LDAP queries, you will need to understand basic LDAP syntax. Now, I'm not going to cover that right now, but you can find a link to that information under the resources section of this lesson. Now, if we click this Find drop-down and select Common Queries, this will allow us to easily create queries for users, computers, and groups. And this is what we're going to choose for this first example. All we need to choose is under days since last logon. We're going to select this drop-down list and we're going to say 30. So if we click OK, it says the query is valid but will not be shown because it contains values that must be computed when the query is run. And all that means is that, time is constantly changing, so it can't show you everything that's going to be in here. What the query is going to do is show any user accounts that has not logged in the last 30 days. So if we click OK and we hit OK again, now this saved query is set up so that if we have a user account that does not log in within 30 days, it will appear under this query. So if your boss comes in and says, I need to find a list of all the users who haven't logged in within the last 30 days, you could simply come into your Active Directory, go to 30 days since last logon, right click and say export list, and then you can send this list to him and he can have that information very quickly. Now let's make another save query and we'll show all the user accounts that are locked out. To do this, we're going to have to do an advanced LDAP query, and I'm just going to show you some basic syntax of how it works. We're not going to go real in depth, but this will be useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new query. So right click on Save Queries and we'll choose New. And we'll say Query. And we're going to say Locked User Accounts. And I'm just going to leave the description blank because that's totally optional. And now we'll click Define Query. Again, we're leaving it under the root IT Flee. So we're going to select Find. We're going to choose Custom Search. And we're going to say Advanced. All right, so now we need to start typing in some of the LDAP syntax. So what we're going to type in is the object category, the object class, and we're going to be searching against the parameter lockout time. And we're going to see if it's greater than 0, greater or equal to 0. So the way that you do that is open parentheses and type in object category. And this is going to be a person because that's what we're looking for. So we'll say person, and then we need to specify the class. So we're going to say object class, and notice I'm using a capital C on class and a capital C under category. So object class is equal to user, since we're looking up a user account. And then put a close parentheses. And then we're going to do another open parentheses, and this is where we're going to search for the parameter or attribute. And we're going to type in lockout time is greater than or equal to 1. And then we'll put in a close bracket. And that's it for our LDAP query. So what we're doing is we're finding a person, and it's a user, and any user or person that has a lockout time greater than 1. This value, anything that's greater than or equal to 1, will be a user account that is currently locked out. So if we click OK, we can see here that the query string has been put in here, and it's added a couple extra pieces of code here. That's fine. Don't worry about that. We'll just click OK. And now we have locked out user accounts. So if we had a user account that was locked out in the domain, it would be listed here. And this is one that I can actually demonstrate to you. So I've set up on my domain, if you enter a password wrong more than 3 times, the account will be locked. So let me demonstrate that for you now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this account that I'm currently logged into. And I'm going to switch user. And I'm going to type in my username, paul.hill. And I'm just going to fail to log in 3 times. And since I configured the lockout to be 3 failed attempts, the account will lock out, and then we should see it listed under locked user accounts in Active Directory. Now, by default, you're allowed an unlimited number of failed login attempts. So if you have not configured this setting in group policy, you will not be able to lock out a user account. Okay. Those of you who are in a corporate domain or in a production environment with a lot of users on your network, my guess is that you saw a bunch of user accounts listed right away. So now I'm going to hit right control and delete. I'm going to select other user, and I'm going to type in paul.hill, and I'm just going to start typing in bad passwords. So one more attempt, and then the account should be locked. The reference account is currently locked out and may not be logged onto. So at this point, when a user experiences this issue, they're going to have to send you an email, submit a ticket, or give you a phone call. So I'm going to switch back to my administrator account, which is not a good practice to commonly use the administrator account. I'm just using it to show you guys this example of how to lock out user accounts, and I don't want to lock out the default administrator account. So now, if you get a phone call and they say, hey, I locked out my account, you could search for their username, like the old way, just like you would reset a password. I could type in Paul Hill, and I could find the account, right click, reset password, and I could choose unlock the user account. We can see here that it states that the user account is locked out. But instead, I can just click up here at locked out user accounts, hit F5, and the user account is listed right here. So I could also right click and export a list of this if I'd like, and I could just call it locked out accounts. Save it to the desktop, and if your boss needs a report of something like this, you can also send him this text file, okay? Now, in this lesson, we mainly focused on finding user accounts, but saved queries can also be used to locate any object within Active Directory. So don't think you can only use saved queries for users. You can use them for printers, file shares, anything that you can think of. So I encourage you to play around with saved queries. I hope you find this lesson useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.